the Maharashtra Judicial Academy's online session for the fresh law graduates. As a part of the capacity building of law graduates prior to their enrollment as advocates, we have a mandate from the Honorable Supreme Court through the National Judicial Academy, as directed by the Governing Council of the National Judicial Academy, to provide this kind of training to the fresh law graduates. We have planned this training since a long period. Due to various reasons, it could take place. I welcome for today's session our Honorable Officiating Director and today's speaker, Chief Justice R.D. Dhanuka sir, Judge Bombay High Court. I welcome all the fresh law graduates and all other participants who have shown keen interest. A little introduction for today's honorable guest speaker. Honorable Chief Justice R.D. Dhanuka sir was born on 31st May 1961, did his schooling in Mumbai, acquired the bachelor degree in commerce and law from the University of Bombay. Lordship secured first class and stood second in third year law examination conducted by the University of Bombay in 1985. Lordship started practice of law at Bombay High Court in 1985 in the chamber of Sri Justice D.R. Dhanuka till his elevation as High Court Judge of Bombay in 1990. Prior to that, Lordship joined the chamber of Sri S.R. Shah, retired city civil judge and leading senior advocate in 1990. Lordship had vast experience as an advocate, as having practiced on appellate and original side of the High Court of Judicature at Bombay, in constitutional law and other branches of law, and particularly arbitration, Companies Act, suits, testamentary, municipal laws, service laws, Rent Act. Lordship was on the senior council panel of Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai for several years and appeared in large number of matters representing the municipal corporation in Bombay High Court. Lordship joined as additional judge of the Bombay High Court on 23rd January 2012. Lordship has been appointed as the officiating director of our pioneer Maharashtra Judicial Academy on 26 February 2020. My Lord, Your Honor have agreed and gave kind consent to conduct this session in a short notice. Once again, on behalf of the participants also, my Lord, I welcome you and request Your Honor to start the session on the law precedent. Mic unmute kara. Some technician will help kindly to unmute the mic. Yes, my Lord. No idea.
Thank you, Mr. Yellagada. As an officiating director, I welcome all the law graduates in this legal profession, which is a noble profession. And I am happy that the topic selected is of most importance for all of us, not only the practicing advocates, the judges, but also for law graduates. From where do you get this binding effect of precedent? What is precedent? Article 141 of the Constitution of India makes it binding that all judgments of Supreme Court have to be followed by high courts and subordinate courts. As far as high court judgments are concerned, we get that power under Article 215 of the Constitution of India, binding on the same High Court and the subordinate courts. And what is the purpose and object of precedent? The purpose and object of precedent is that there must be certainty and consistency. It can't be that one judge in High Court or in subordinate court or even in Supreme Court decides one way and the other judges will follow some other path and would not follow the view already taken by a judge of High Court or Supreme Court, as the case may be. But as far as subordinate courts are concerned, there is no question of there being any precedent of a judgment of one subordinate court as binding on another subordinate court in the same state. But they are all bound by the judgment of High Courts, parent High Court, as well as the Supreme Court. This issue has been decided in case of Union of India versus Raghubir Singh, 1989, two Supreme Court cases 754, and also by another constitution bench of the Supreme Court in case of Chandra Prakash versus State of Uttar Pradesh, 2002, four Supreme Court cases 234, where it has been held that the doctrine of binding precedent has the merit of promoting a certainty and consistency in judicial decisions and enables an organic development of the law, besides providing assurance to the individual as to the consequence of transactions forming part of his daily affairs. The doctrine of binding precedent is of utmost importance in administration of our judicial system. It promotes certainty and consistency in judicial decision. In a recent judgment of Supreme Court in case of Dr. Shah Faisal and others versus Union of India 2024 SEC page 1, the Supreme Court observed that the court's jurisprudence has shown that usually the courts do not overrule the established precedents unless there is a social, constitutional or economic change mandating such a development. The use of such precedents to some extent creates certainty upon which individuals can rely and conduct their affairs. It also creates a basis for the development of rule of law. In another judgment, in case of Union of India versus Dhanvantri Devi, 1996, 6 Supreme Court cases, page 44. However, the Supreme Court has warned as to what is precedent, what is a binding precedent, what is a ratio descendendi, what is obiter, and it is held that it is not everything said by a judge while giving judgment that constitutes a precedent. The only thing in a judge's decision binding a party is the principle upon which the case is decided, and for this reason, it is important to analyze a decision and isolate from it the ratio decidendi. The three basic postulates prescribed by the Supreme Court in the said judgment is findings of material facts, direct and inferential, statement of the principle of law applicable to the legal problems disclosed by the facts, and judgment based on combined effect of the above two. A decision is only an authority for what it actually decides. What is of the essence is decision is its ratio and not every observation found therein, nor what logically follows from various observations made in the judgment. Every judgment must be read as applicable to the particular facts provided or assumed to be proved. Now, how do you read a judgment for the purpose of finding out a ratio in the judgment? Do you read only head note, or you are required to read the controversial issue before the court? If you only read head note, you may end up in difficulty because head notes may not be accurate in all the matters. if there is misreporting in head note and you rely only on head note and don't read the judgment, then you may end up in difficulty. Now, how to read a judgment to find out a precedent? You may have to, some of the judgments you will find that in the beginning itself, the courts, they formulate a question well for consideration before the court in that matter. If that is so, then it becomes easy for you to read the later part of the judgment and find out how that issue well for consideration has been ultimately dealt with by the Supreme Court or the High Court, as the case may be, in the later part of the judgment. Then you see the facts of that matter. What are the provisions of law referred or fell for consideration before the court in that judgment? How the matter was argued, what submissions were made, what were the other judgments, binding precedents of Supreme Court or the High Court were referred in that judgment. And ultimately, what is the conclusion derived by the Supreme Court or the High Court on the basis of the issue involved, the facts pleaded before the court, the arguments advanced, the provisions of law considered, and the binding effect of the judgments of Supreme Court or the High Court, as the case may be, has been dealt with. And then you see the ratio, what is ultimately held. If all these factors apply to the facts of your case, then that may be a precedent. If your facts are different, provisions of law are different, the binding judgments of Supreme Court and your parent High Court are not cited, and in ignorance of all this, if the court decides, that judgment also may not come under the category of a binding precedent. In case of Royal Medical Trust versus Union of India 2017, 16 Supreme Court cases 605, it has been held by this Honorable Supreme Court that it is well settled law that ratio of a decision has to be understood, regard being head to its context and factual exposition. If it is based on a particular fact or the decision of the court is guided by a specific nature of the case, it will not amount to the ratio of judgment. And why I am highlighting this judgment is for this reason, that when you read a judgment of Supreme Court particularly, which deals with the cases from all over India, being the apex court, there may be state laws of different states in issue before the Honorable Supreme Court in a particular judgment. If the state laws fell for consideration before the Supreme Court is different than the provisions of law fell for consideration before you, either as a High Court judge or even in subordinate courts, then if the provisions are different and the different provisions interpreted by the Supreme Court, then that judgment of the Supreme Court interpreting that particular provision which is different in your state, that judgment cannot be applied as a binding precedent. But if the judgment is based on interpretation of a central law, central legislation, which applies to all the states, and there is the question is only of interpretation of Central Act, then that judgment would be binding on all the high courts as well as the subordinate courts. There may not be any issue of facts involved in that type of situation, and only on the basis of interpretation of provisions of law, the Supreme Court has rendered a ratio that will be binding on all of us. Now, what is obiter? That also you must know, because obiter, though is of considerable weight, But obiter may not be binding as a binding precedent. That issue is decided by the Supreme Court in case of Director of Settlement Andhra Pradesh versus M.R. Appa 2002 4 Supreme Court cases 638. I would like to read 3 lines from that judgment. It says that even though an obiter may not have a binding effect as a precedent, but it cannot be denied that it is of considerable weight. The law which will be binding under Article 141 would therefore extend to all observations of points raised and decided by the court in a given case. So far as constitutional matters are concerned, it is a practice of court not to make any pronouncement on points not directly raised for its decision. Therefore, what you have to see in a judgment is whether that issue fell for consideration of the court or not. Any passing observation made by a Supreme Court or High Court, as the case may be, may not be a binding precedent. It may be, though it may have considerable weight according to the principles laid down by the Supreme Court in the said judgment in case of Director of Settlements versus M.R. Appa Rao. A special bench of 5 judges of our court in case of State of Maharashtra versus M.M. Ghorpade, 2009 6 Maharashtra General 788, held that normally the judgment of a higher court or a larger bench or coordinate bench would be binding on a bench of a lesser strength. Subject to an exception that if on the facts of a given case and the law applicable, the case falls for good and valid reasons within the exception specified in the judgment, or that the judgment is per incuriam or sub silentio and or hid by stare decisis, then it may not be a binding precedent. Therefore, you have to see whether the judgment sought to be relied upon by you as an advocate or before you as a judge is per incuriam or is sub silentio. Even in that event, that judgment will not be treated as a precedent. Now, what is per incuriam and what is sub silentio? That issue has been decided in number of judgments. And one paragraph I would like to read from the judgment of our court in case of Samir Anant Deshpande versus State of Maharashtra, 2001 4 Maharashtra General 870, which again provides that the law precedent has 2 exceptions. One is the doctrine of per incuriam and the other is rule of sub silentio. If a decision is rendered without considering a statutory provision or a rule on the basis of which a decision is sought or a judicial pronouncement is made earlier by a coordinate bench or larger bench of the High Court, or the decision rendered is contrary to law laid down by the apex court, the doctrine of per incuriam would operate. If there was no occasion for the court to consider a particular statutory provision or a particular rule and a decision was rendered, such a decision would be silent regarding the interpretations of the statutory provisions or the rules which were not referred to. The issue of binding precedents has been considered by the learned single judge by referring to the Supreme Court judgment in case of Delhi Municipal Corporation versus Gurnam Court 1989 1 SEC and series of judgments. Therefore, what you have to see is that if a binding decision of the Supreme Court or of the High Court, as the case may be, is not followed in the judgment cited before you, or you are reading that judgment as a student, you want to, now you have become advocate, you want to rely upon that judgment. Then if somebody points out the binding judgment, which is not referred to by a judge in that judgment, which is referred before you, then you have to treat that judgment as a precedent sub silentio or per incuriam, and that judgment would be in that situation would not be a binding precedent and would fall under the exceptions carved out by the Supreme Court in case of Gurnam Kaur versus Delhi Development Authority, which is a leading judgment on this issue. Now, you may come across the judgment of larger bench, and more particularly before the Honorable Supreme Court. Judgments are delivered by 2 judges, judgments are delivered by 3 judges, judgments are delivered by 5 judges, 7 judges, 9 judges, sometimes 11 judges, and sometimes even 13 judges. So, bench of higher strength, if decides a particular issue, that judgment would be binding on the entire court. What a judge has to, what course has to be adopted by a single judge. It is decided by the Supreme Court in case of Lala Bhagwan versus Ramchand AR 1965 Supreme Court 1767, where it is held that it is hardly necessary to emphasize that consideration of judicial propriety and decorum require that if a learned single judge hearing a matter is inclined to take a view that the earlier decision of the High Court, whether of a division bench or of a single judge, need to be reconsidered, he should not embark upon that inquiry sitting as a single judge, but should refer the matter to a division bench or, in a proper case, place the relevant papers before the Chief Justice to enable him to constitute a larger bench to examine the question. That is the proper and traditional way to deal with such matters, and it is founded on healthy principles of judicial decorum and propriety. But what happens if a subordinate judge feels that his views are different than the judge having delivered a judgment in High Court or Supreme Court? Then he requests the principal district judge or High Court to refer that issue to larger bench. The answer is no. All subordinate judges are bound by the judgments of their parent high courts and of course by the judgment delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court. Subordinate court judges have no power to refer any issue to the larger bench, either in your own district or before the High Court or before the Supreme Court, as the case may be. But in High Court and Supreme Court, it happens that a judgment of 2-judge bench or 3-judge bench is binding on the bench of equal strength. But if the bench of equal strength wants to take a different view, then you cannot ignore the binding precedent. You can express your views, dissenting views, and in that event request the office to place the matter before the Honorable Chief Justice, so that Chief Justice, if feels satisfied that yes, this requires to be heard by larger bench, then full bench or the sometimes even 5 judges bench is constituted even in High Court by the Honorable Chief Justice. Then that conflict between the 2 benches of equal strength can be resolved by referring the matter to larger bench, and then the view taken by the larger bench in that event would be binding on the 2 judges bench or even single judge as well as the subordinate courts. You must have come across several such situations where in Supreme Court 2 judges bench is not satisfied the view taken by another bench of equal strength, or even sometimes 3 judges bench. They may request the Honorable Chief Justice to refer the matter to constitutional bench of 5 judges, and sometimes constitutional bench also finds that it is required to be heard by a larger bench, then the matter may be referred by the Honorable Chief Justice to sometimes 7 judges, sometimes 9 judges, sometimes even 11 judges or 13 judges, as the case may be. Now, what happens if you don't follow a binding precedent? Though it applies to the facts of your case, you know that it is binding, but you are not agreeable with the views expressed by the High Court or the Supreme Court, and you ignore the binding precedent. The Supreme Court has taken very strict view about this behavior of the subordinate courts and even sometime against the High Court. In one leading judgment in the year 1973, I'll just read. 1973, one Supreme Court cases 446 in case of Sri Baradakanta Misra versus Sri Bhimsen Dixit. The Supreme Court took cognizance of the deliberate action on the part of the subordinate court in not following a binding precedent and observed that a deliberate and a mala fide conduct of not following the binding precedent of the High Court is contemptuous, does not unduly enlarge the domain of contempt. It would not stifle a bona fide act of distinguishing the binding precedent, even though it may turn out to be mistaken. If you are in a position to distinguish the judgment of the High Court or the Supreme Court in the facts of the case in your hand, then there is no question of any contempt on your part. But it can't be deliberate disobedience of the principles of law taken under a binding precedent, either by the High Court or the Supreme Court, as the case may be. Recently, in one matter, our Bombay High Court had also decided this issue on 3rd December 2020 in contempt petition number 127 of 2019 in case of Yogesh Athavale versus Vikram Jadhav. The respondent number 1, Mr. Vikram Jadhav, was a civil judge, junior division and judicial magistrate first class, Chiplun. Against him, there was a grievance made by an advocate that he was deliberately not following the binding precedents of the Supreme Court and the High Court, and therefore he should be punished under the provisions of Contempt of Courts Act 1971. The division bench of our court, after referring to various judgments, gave warning to the concerned judge and directed the principal district judge to monitor the performance of the learned judge for 1 year from the date of the said judgment by randomly checking the judgments and orders and keep the High Court informed if required for necessary action. The High Court also expressed hope and trust that in future the learned judge will exercise his judicious mind while dealing with judicial work with greater care, caution and circumspection. The purpose of referring to these two judgments is that whenever you act as a judge of a subordinate court, please see that don't ignore a binding precedent. If you are a practicing advocate, you must cite the binding precedent before the judge concerned whether it is against you or it is in your favor. All of us expect a fairness and reasonable approach on the part of all the advocates when judgments are cited before us or even otherwise. In one of the matter, issue arose whether an order passed by higher court in an interim application would be a binding precedent or not. This issue has been decided by the Supreme Court in case of State of Assam versus Barak Upatyak D.V. Karmachari Sanstha 2009 by Supreme Court cases 694. The reasons rendered by the Supreme Court in the said judgment is that when an interim application is decided, court passes or court makes a prima facie observation. If court makes a prima facie observation, then where is the question of that being treated as a binding precedent? Because interim orders are always subject to final orders while the proceedings are finally disposed of. At the stage of final hearing, the court may take a different view. But if any question of law is decided, even in an interim order, that question of law may be still binding if it is a pure question of law and not depending upon the facts of that case. Now, when you read a precedent, you must read the entire judgment, according to me, because you may find that in the last paragraph of the judgment, the court makes it clear that this judgment is delivered in the facts of this case and will not be treated as a binding precedent. So if you read only head note and few paragraphs here and there, and you don't read that last paragraph, which makes it clear that it will not be treated as a binding precedent, then you will be citing a judgment before a judge which is not a binding precedent, or as a judge, if you rely upon this judgment by ignoring the last paragraph, making it clear that it will be not binding precedent but delivered in the facts of that case, then you will be deciding that judgment erroneously, and by carrying out that that judgment was a binding precedent. You may also have to read the judgment carefully for this reason, that if a counsel appearing before the court has made any concession of law, and based on that concession of law, the court records that and decides accepting that concession in a particular manner. Ultimately, it may be found that that concession of law may be contrary to law or contrary to other binding precedents. Then that concession of law has to be ignored. Any judgment based on concession of law made by a counsel cannot be treated as a binding precedent. So you have to be very careful when you read a judgment on this aspect also. Another aspect you must thoroughly check when you read a judgment, whether the judgment of Supreme Court or the High Court, as the case may be, whether it makes it clear that the view taken or the question of law decided by the Supreme Court or the High Court, as the case may be, on interpretation of particular provision, whether it is made effective with prospective effect or retrospective effect. If the judgment makes it clear that it is with prospective effect, then in all pending matters, that judgment would not be applicable as a binding precedent. But if it applies with retrospective effect, if the judgment is clear on that aspect that it applies with retrospective effect on interpretation of provisions of law, then that judgment may apply even to pending matters. But therefore, it is necessary to know after reading the entire text whether the judgment applies with prospective effect or retrospective effect. If the judgment is based on a particular provision of law and that provision of law is subsequently repealed or is amended in a particular manner, and that unamended provision is interpreted by Supreme Court, then that judgment, which obviously will not deal with the amendment, which may give a different scenario, in that event, that judgment may not apply to the cases dealing with the amendment or the cases on which amendment would apply. Therefore, you have to be very, very careful while reading a judgment as to what provision is applied, whether that provision is applicable to the facts before you, or the provision is already amended or is already repealed. There is another aspect as to what is the distinctive feature between res judicata and law precedent. As you know, res judicata operates in personam between the same parties in the former litigation, whereas law precedent operates in rem and not in personam. Law precedent concerns application of law in a similar issue. Therefore, you have to see that you don't mix up the principles of res judicata, which operates in rem, operates in personam, with the principles of precedent, which operates in rem. This issue has been decided by the Supreme Court in case of Manmohan Sharma versus State of Rajasthan, 2014, by Supreme Court cases 782. In case of Lily Thomas versus Union of India, 2006 Supreme Court cases 224, it is held by the Supreme Court that the ruling of larger benches should be followed and those of coordinate benches of equal strength not to be deferred from and must be followed. The decision rendered by a coordinate bench is binding on the subsequent benches of equal or lesser strength. This is the view taken by the Supreme Court in case of National Insurance Company Limited versus Pranay Sethi, 2017, 16 Supreme Court cases 680. There is another important issue dealt with by the Supreme Court in case of Shanti Kumar Panda versus Sakuntala Devi, 2004, 1 SCC 438, where the view taken is that a decision by a criminal court does not bind the civil court, while a decision by civil court binds the criminal court. The reason behind this view is that the criminal proceedings require strict proof, whereas civil proceedings are decided on the basis of preponderance of probabilities. So when you rely upon a precedent, you please see whether it is rendered in a criminal proceeding or it is rendered in a civil proceeding before citing that judgment before any court of law. Recently, in one of the arbitration matter, the question arose, before I tell you the question arose, I must tell you, under Section 11 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, prior to 23rd October 2015, all proceedings under Section 11 for appointment of arbitrator were required to be filed before the Chief Justice of the High Court or before the Chief Justice of India of the Supreme Court. That was in case of international commercial arbitration. And in case of domestic arbitration, it was required to be filed before the Chief Justice of the High Court. In case of SBP versus Patel Engineering Limited 2005 8 SCC 618, the Supreme Court ultimately held that the order passed in those proceedings under Section 11 were not judicial proceedings, but were decided in administrative capacity. Because Chief Justice of the High Court or the Chief Justice of India were not courts, they were the senior most administrative judges of the High Court as well as the Supreme Court, as the case may be. In 2015, there was an amendment to Section 11, and the words Chief Justice of High Court or the Chief Justice of India in case of Supreme Court were substituted by the word court. And as a result of that, all proceedings thereafter were required to be filed before court in High Court in case of domestic arbitration and before the Supreme Court in case of international commercial arbitration for appointment of arbitrator under Section 11. So what happened to the judgments delivered by Chief Justice or its designate in High Court prior to the date of that amendment on 23rd October 2015 while appointing an arbitrator? That issue came to be resolved by a learned single judge of our court, and it was held that since the judgments which were delivered prior to the date of amendment of 23rd October 2015, and when the orders were passed by the Chief Justice as persona designated or by the Chief Justice of India as persona designated under Section 11, those judgments would not be a binding precedent because they were not decided by a court of law, but were decided in the administrative proceedings. Sometimes the question may arise that an appeal is filed against a judgment before the higher court. Whether the principles of law already decided by the High Court, maybe by a single judge, if that judgment is cited before you, or you want to cite that judgment before some court, and you are informed that appeal is already filed against that judgment, question may arise whether that judgment already delivered and that judgment itself is not stayed by the higher court, whether that would continue to be a binding precedent before the subordinate courts. Answer is yes, merely because an appeal is filed against a judgment and there is till such time that judgment itself is stayed by the higher court, and if the judgment is a binding precedent, applies to the facts of your case, that will have to be relied upon as a binding precedent. You cannot ignore that judgment merely on the ground that appeal is pending. If the issue is referred to larger bench by a single judge of High Court or by two judges of High Court or even by Supreme Court by 2 judges to 3 judges, Constitution bench, 5 judges, 7 judges as the case may be. Even in that event, the binding precedent would continue to be binding. Even if the matter is referred to larger bench, there is no automatic stay of the binding precedent of the High Court or the Supreme Court as the case may be. You may come across several such circumstances when you sit as a judge, but don't be swayed away by the fact that appeal is pending before the higher court or the issue is referred to larger bench. It may be a matter of convenience if matter is referred to larger bench. Sometimes an application is made that it is likely to be decided, matter is already on board before the larger bench. In that event, you can exercise your discretion that if it is likely to be decided shortly, and that is matter is already posted on board for hearing before the larger bench. In that event, you may adjourn the matter for some time. But the law precedent is that the binding precedent would continue to be binding even if the issue is referred to larger bench and is pending before the larger bench. One of the issue arose in case of Coimbatore Pioneer Rolling Mills versus Deputy Commissioner of Sales Tax 1997, 11 Supreme Court cases 686, that if there is no binding precedent of your parent High Court when you are a subordinate judge or you are practicing in court and you come across a judgment of some other High Court, whether that judgment of some other High Court would be a binding precedent in your High Court or not. Supreme Court has taken a view in that matter that the decision of a coordinate bench of one High Court is not binding upon another court of coordinate jurisdiction. But what happens is that in case of matters arising out of taxing laws, maybe income tax, central excise, custom, sales tax, central laws, I must say, where it applies all over India, law is same. Then normally if one High Court has taken a particular view on interpretation of that provision, then and if there is no other judgment of your parent High Court, then in tax matters, normally judgment of other High Courts is followed unless the court is of the view that no, our court doesn't agree, then you can of course take your own view. But if there is no precedent, then you can take your own view. If there is a precedent, if you are agreeable with the views of the other High Court, you follow, adopt those views, but not as a precedent. Another aspect you must know, when you read a judgment of a Supreme Court exercises powers under Article 142 of the Constitution of India sometimes to do complete justice in the matter. If that is specifically mentioned in the judgment that court is exercising powers under Article 142, and in the facts of that judgment has granted certain reliefs as a special case to do complete justice. Powers of Article 142 cannot be exercised by High Court and obviously by lower courts. That power can be exercised only by Supreme Court. So any order passed by Supreme Court exercising powers under Article 142 to do complete justice in a matter also will not be a binding precedent on the same court as well as on high courts and of course the subordinate courts. This is the view taken by the Supreme Court in case of Board of Apprenticeship Training and another versus M. Anbumani and others, 2017, 14 Supreme Court cases, 205. Another interesting issue which normally arises is that a High Court has decided a particular question of law, and against that special leave petition is filed by the aggrieved party. Supreme Court dismisses that special leave petition in limine without going into the merits, without granting leave to appeal. And in one line, order is no case is made out for interference with the High Court's judgment. SLP dismissed. So whether that order passed by the Supreme Court can be considered as a binding precedent of Supreme Court or not, that issue is decided in several judgments, but the latest one I will tell you is in case of Kaikasru Kawaji Fremji versus Union of India and another, EIR 2019 Supreme Court 1692, where the view taken is that appeal is disposed of on statement made by the Union of India and a state officer and not on merits. No occasion for Supreme Court to apply mind to the merits to record any finding. Principle of merger would not apply. Same principles applies also to an order passed by Supreme Court dismissing the special leave petition in limine without going into the merits. The effect of that would be that that would not be a precedent of Supreme Court under Article 141, but that would continue to be a precedent of the High Court, parent High Court. So subordinate courts would be still bound by the judgment of High Court under Article 215 and not under Article 141 of the Constitution of India. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll try my best to
Thank you, my lord.
cover it.
My lord, we have two questions from the charts relevant to this subject. First is in fact not a question as such, but it is a concern. The concern is, sir, most revenue authorities never consider judgments delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court or High Court, and without considering the precedent laid down by those courts, they pass orders. As a lawyer, the concern is how to tackle this issue. Not only the revenue authorities, some appellate tribunals also do not follow these precedents.
You will have to challenge that order on that ground before the higher court. You can bring it to the notice of the principal district judge in case of the district courts. In case of revenue authorities, if they don't decide, first of all, it is your duty to bring it to their notice, the binding precedent. File a written submission, place it before them that these are the binding judgments. In spite of that, if it doesn't follow those judgments, then the higher court can correct that judgment with some observation. That is what has happened in our, as I refer to that Bombay High Court judgment. There was similar problem that a civil judge junior division was not following the judgment of Supreme Court and High Court. That grievance was made and a contempt petition was filed against that junior judge by one of the advocate, and our court was required to give warning to that judge, and also a direction came to be issued to the principal district judge that you monitor his performance and report to the High Court.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is also again a concern. As an advocate, how to challenge a precedent? The question is with reference to the judgment given by the Honorable Supreme Court in 5 judges bench relating to the death sentence, death penalty in Bachchan Singh case. If somebody wants to challenge that 5 judges precedent, so what will be the course?
Nobody can challenge that judgment of 5 judges. If you are in a pending matter before Supreme Court, if identical issue arises,
yes,
and the court must be satisfied, because if your matter is before 2 judges, 3 judges, they are bound by the 5 judges judgment. But if court feels 5 judges judgment, judges feel that no, this requires further consideration by a larger bench, in that event they can refer it to the Honorable Chief Justice of India for constituting a larger bench. Nobody can challenge it. Either you are advocate or you are a judge. Nobody can challenge that judgment. It is a binding precedent. It is for the Supreme Court to decide whether that requires reconsideration and matter should be referred to larger bench.
Thank you, my lord. May, on behalf of the rest law graduates participants, my request is, Your Honor, to enlighten them, especially when there are too many judgments on a topic. If we take some few journals on the same topic, there will be too many judgments. So which one to be preferred to be cited before the court? Especially the courts say that can you limit your citations? You are giving in dozens and double dozens. So how to choose the uh, best judgments to cite before a court?
See, advocates would like to cite all judgments from 1947 onwards, but you can warn them that you cite the latest judgment directly on the issue. If one or two or three judgments you can ask them to rely upon. If there is very old judgment, but that is directly on the issue and others are not directly on the issue, ultimately you have to see the precedent, what is close to your facts and what was argued there, how to find out the precedent, that I already covered. Therefore, you request the advocate, don't cite too many judgments, you cite the latest one, because you will find in the latest judgment there is a reference already made to the earlier judgments. So you don't have to read all judgments on the issue. Yes.
Thank you, my lord. I don't see any other queries posted. So I would request, I would like to invite the participants to raise hands if they want to raise any query relating to the subject. Most welcome. Yes, I request Mr. Mahesh Krishnamurthy to unmute and pose the query. Please, Mr. Mahesh Krishnamurthy.
Your Lordship, I wanted to follow up on your comment regarding the revenue authorities not following precedent. Now, for rule of law, it is super important that people in power follow precedent, whether it's the government or the judges. Now, obviously, in the individual case, you have the ability to appeal, but do you see any broader action being required? Because not all litigants have the ability to go on an appeal.
No, I agree with you. This concern is very right concern shown by you. In every matter, you can't go in appeal against the order of revenue authority. But in that event, you can always place it on record before his higher authority that he is not following the judgment, because once that is on record, he will be more careful. If there is a provision for review, you can apply for review before the same judge. And you have not followed the judgment, follow the judgment. Or once his record is spoiled, because if there are regular complaints against him that he doesn't bother about law, doesn't bother about binding precedents, and at some stage, the notice is taken care of by the higher authorities, and such officer is either transferred or dismissed or suspended.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, I think Mr. Krishnamurthy, sir, answer is that first is that to challenge it in the appeal or higher court, and second is that as Honorable Lordship has shared regarding the judge, that remedy is also available. But as such, there cannot be any uniform omnibus remedy to that, because law is already there, mandate is there. So I will go to the next. Now I request Mr. Thorat, my colleague, to see the hands raised and invite them one by one.
दत्तात्रय सातवलेकर सर, प्लीज अनम्यूट करून बोला ना.
Good afternoon, Lordship. I want to. I have one doubt, and please enlighten on the point of where if judgment is referred to the larger bench, what will be effect made in that judgment which is referred to the larger bench?
Please repeat your question.
If a judgment is referred to the larger bench
Yes.
and some observations made in the judgment which is referred to the larger bench, and larger bench decision is pending.
If larger decision is pending, the binding effect of the judgment which is referred to larger bench is not taken away. Larger bench may take some time. In the meanwhile, that binding effect of the earlier judgment would continue.
Thank you, Lord.
सर श्रीहरी कानखंडे सर प्लीज अनम्यूट करून बोला.
Sir, my question was regarding whether, as you said, that the parent high court's judgment is binding on the lower courts. But
Yes.
on a certain point, if parent high court has not decided the issue and the other high court has decided the issue, so whether that other high court's judgment is binding on the lower courts on that issue.
See, other high court judgment may not be binding as a binding precedent on you, but you may take the same view taken by the other high court because you don't have any judgment of your parent high court with you.
It will not be a precedent, sir.
It will not be a precedent.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
नाहीये सर कोणाचा आता हँड रेज दिसत नाही.
With your honor's kind permission, we may conclude this session. Give me 2 minutes time, sir, to render the vote of thanks. My lord, on behalf of the participants and our team from Maharashtra Judicial Academy, I express my deep gratitude to your honor for agreeing to conduct this session in a short notice and in a simple manner, addressing all the aspects of the law of precedent, appealing to not only to the judges but importantly to the lawyers, because the lawyers are the main group who provide this feed to the judges to get good judgments. And your honor has helped a lot in enlightening the budding lawyers how to understand what is the binding precedent and how to choose them and how to present them before the court in their respective cases. On behalf of the participants also, I express my gratitude to your honor for giving a valuable time and enlightening all of us. I express my gratitude to all the fresh law graduates who have taken this opportunity and attended this session. And I express my gratitude to all my brother and sister judges also who have keenly attended this session. We are always law students of law. My Lord Honorable Justice Dhanuka sir himself says that he is also a student of our law. When his lordship can say, we shall definitely follow that. Even otherwise, also always we learn law. And I express my gratitude to you also, and I express my gratitude to all the judicial officers who have contributed to make this program meaningful and successful by sharing this program details to the fresh law graduates. And I'm thankful to my colleagues and my team also. With this, Your Honor, I may be allowed to conclude this session. And we will have another session at 2 o'clock today, 2 to 4 for fresh law graduates. And the details are there on the website. And one request was there to provide the compilation of these judgments. If my lord permits, I will take from his lordship and make a list of those authorities, and
Yes,
I will share them in the next session. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind permission.
Thank you.
सर चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये टाकून देतो नेक्स्ट सेशनची डिटेल्स मग.
Yes, please.
हा.
Thank you.